We are, first of all, I want to dedicate whatever the Farbring in my talk for Lulu Nishmas, my grandmother, Bonus Rezel, Bas Rabbi Shavuos, she passed away a few days ago. Hashem should have an aliyah, and her blessing should be a memory. Her memory should be a blessing, and she should be a realization. She have to get something. Anyway, we're standing now.
What type of person was she?
She was a very religious woman, extremely religious, extremely optimistic. She was very straight, did what she had to do. She was an educated American woman. She didn't grow up in Europe. She grew up in America. She was born in America. She was a chemist, but she was very, very...
Practicing chemist?
Yeah, she worked in downstate. She used to analyze blood. But she, for example, I didn't know that someone told me that in Rishcheda she never worked. Because it's brought down, the woman is not supposed to work in Rishcheda. She never worked in Rishcheda. Just one small thing. Very, very religious. Every Shabbos afternoon she used to go through the whole Tzena at the end of the week. She was, anyway, B'chol.
And she felt all the Zirkind Hidurim.
Absolutely. She's a very special woman. There's a story, whatever, maybe a story about my grandfather, my grandmother, but I think it's a little mixture of both. There's different people. My grandfather had an open house. All different people came. Charlie, for example, he told me, Charlie has this thing with disease. He always used to go to the Zirkinds. Why? So he claims, at least that's what he claims, so when he first came to Crown Heights, I guess he came in the 70s, someone brought him here at face, so he met the Rebbe in the street. The Rebbe asked him where he's eating. He didn't have a place to eat, so the Rebbe told him to go to the Zirkinds. Since then, he religiously he went. Now he's, whatever he is. He's still there. He has home for Shalom, but he religiously came to the Z's every Shabbos that he was able to. Because the Rebbe told him. But anyway, my grandfather had an open house. And all different, on the Shabbos Mevarchim, we would have all the Bachrim from Morristown would pop in, take shifts, and they would cook up a storm. And my grandfather, someone told me, once met him in the department store buying a certain type of a chair, certain type of a couch, chair, place. Someone asked him, he didn't know what he was doing there, so he said a certain guest used to come, some people used to come to speak to my grandmother, and they liked a certain cheer, so Dafka specifically went to buy the cheer for that, to make that person feel at home. Just a small story that, and we're standing now before Matan Torah, before Pashas Bamidbar. And, it's also the whole world is Baruch Hashem going crazy again. We thought that it was just a mikra nikris, right? Lachtem mimi bekeri. You think that it's corona, it's a mikra, it happens. The Eibush is Baruch Hashem showing that back to normal, we're not going so fast. In Israel we have the new Mivtza, we have the new campaign, the Guardian of the Walls. And Baruch Hashem in America and Russia and the whole world, Baruch Hashem, Segeitza Chafreder. And talking about the Mivtza Shemrei Achemes, so it makes me think of a number of points. First of all, there's the famous Medrash that the Frierdiker Rebbe quotes a number of times. We all heard the term Neturei Karta, right? I'm sure you've heard the term Neturei Karta. It brings memories, whether you like them, you don't like them.
Flashbacks.
Neturei Karta is a group of people in Israel that they're labeled themselves with a term which comes from the Medrash. What is the Medrash? What is the term Neturei Karta from the Medrash all about? There's a city of a certain, one of the Chachamim came to a city, and he asked them, who's the Neturei Karta? Who's the one that watches the city's wall, the city? So they brought him the policemen, the chveis, the people that were hired to be the watchmen. He said, no, these are not the Neturei Karta. What is the Neturei Karta? He said, you bring me the people that are teaching Torah to kids, they are the Neturei Karta. They're the ones that guard the city. Because physical protection, as we see, Zionism is like I heard someone say today, which essentially is, I'm not going to argue that with anyone, but essentially his point was Zionism was experiment, but it's a failed experiment, because the whole foundation of Zionism was, we'll make a democratic country which not based on Torah, not based on the Eibishter, but based on, one of the early Zionists, I'm not going to mention his name, one of the right-wing Zionists. He was a very good speaker. I think I heard the story, he once came to tell the yeshiva to speak, and some of the Bachrim were kanoim, there was zilas, they had in their pockets, they had eggs, they wanted to throw at him. When we started speaking, they were so mesmerized by him that they didn't throw the eggs at him. Anyway, whatever, I'm not gonna, one of the famous early Zionists, you heard the second Midrash, he was saying, the early Zionists were describing the Jew living in the ghetto, living in the shtetl, how they're, inefficient, they're primitive, they're amateur, they don't know how to stand up for themselves. So he said there, so this person, which was, I don't think it was anti-religious necessarily, he said, we find by Moshe Rabbeinu that Rashi tells us that he killed the Egyptian, right? So how did he kill them? So he said he killed them with the Shem HaMeforish, he killed them with the name of the Eibishter. So he says that this Hargei B'Shem HaMeforish, he says, is a golus mentality. That it's a golus mentality. You can't kill him with your gun. You have to kill him with the Shem HaMeforish. So what did the Eibishter show? So the Zionism made their experiment, and they got their guns, they got their army, they had their planes, and the Jew that's relying on the Shem HaMeforish is not afraid to take out the gun and to shoot when he needs to, or to settle a score when he needs to. But it's those people that claim that the Jew that believes in the Eibishter and believes in the Eibishter's protection has a golus mentality. So those people that claim that we have that people that are believing the Eibishter have the golus mentality, they're the biggest manifestation, as the Rabbi would say, of the golus mentality. You win a war, and you can't acknowledge that you won. You have to give back the harabayas. You have to. It's a golus mentality. It's a very deep golus, and it just shows us that the notion of niyah kechol ha'am in Beis Yisrael, that the Jewish way of life, the Jewish success, is not by trying to mimic a non-Jew, by trying to adapt the values of a non-Jew. It's when you do that, you just, for a non-Jew, maybe it works, maybe it doesn't work, but for a Jew, it just doesn't work. So what is the Shemer HaChemis? What is the guardian of the walls, right? So we have a pasuk, Al Chemisayich Yerushalayim Yivkadati Shemrim. It says that the Eibishter set up watchmen on the walls of Yerushalayim. What did they do? It says they're not quiet the whole time. What did they say? The Gemara says in Menachos, Daf Pei Zayin, Daf Pei Tes, Summers, if you want to look it up. The Gemara says, what do they say? They tell the Eibishter, these are malachim. One of the interpretations of this verse is, these are malachim that are reminding the Eibishter and telling him constantly that he has to bring Mashiach. So these are the watchmen the Eibishter set up for Yerushalayim. It's the people that believe in the future of the Jewish people, not in a secular future, but those that believe in the future of the Jewish people, as the Torah predicts, that our goal is the days of Mashiach, our goal is to bring and make a dir b'tachtein. These are the people that protect the Jewish people. So what does that have to do with Bamidbar? Bamidbar, we speak about Chumash HaPkudim, it's a Chumash of counting. What's the idea of counting? So the Rabbi discusses the number of sichas, so we find in Halacha that something which is counted shows that it has a chashivus, it shows that it has an importance, and therefore, we know that in the laws, those that learn smich, I'm sure are familiar, there's the concept of a bitul b'shishim, something that is mixed, falls into a mixture, and the 60 times the amount, it becomes nullified. But there's certain exceptions, certain things that are have a very strong prominence, importance. There's something which, it doesn't become automatically nullified, despite the fact that qualitatively, quantity-wise, it could be it's much smaller, but because of its quality, it's so important, it doesn't become nullified. Right? If you lose if you lose $100 bill and a bunch of pennies, even if the pennies are who knows how much, it's not going to become nullified, you understand? So something which has the chashivus does not become nullified. There's certain things in halacha that are considered things that have chashivus. One of them is davar shebemin, certain things that used to be sold by itemized, not like you bought a pound of green beans, but you certain things that were very expensive or important, chashuv, they were sold one by one. Right? They go today in a store, certain fruits, you pay by the fruits, $1.99 per avocado, whatever it is. It's not, it doesn't go by pound or by anything. So davar shebeminyan, something that is counted, shows that it has a chashivus atzmis. It reflects an inherent Mila, the advantage that it has, permanence that it has, it doesn't become bottom. Every Jew, no matter who he is, what he is counted, right? That's one of the things that Rabbi highlights when we're counting the Jewish people. Every Moshe Rabbeinu was one, and the lower, you know, the Jew that wasn't so careful in Torah mitzvahs is also one. Every Jew is counted. Every Jew has that essential chashivas, essential, you know, value because he's Jewish. The idea of counting it is to bring it out in the open. The Rabbi also, by the way, connects it with Sfira So'imer. The Rabbi says a similar message. Every day in Sfira you count 49 days. During the day, some days are Yom Tov, some days are Shabbos, some days are weekdays, happy days, sad days. Every day is counted equally. Why the idea is that when it comes to Sir Davish, every day is the same. You know, there's no every day has a day. There's no breaks. Not one day is every day. One day is a much more happier day, a much more religious day, spiritual day. But it's a day like a day. A very low day, a dark day, a day when you're not in the mood of getting out of bed is also a day. But anyway, so this is the idea. So the Rebbe says the Jewish people are kivsa achas ben shivim zevim. They're one sheep among 70 wolves. And naturally what happens is, like I mentioned before, many Jews, it's a struggle that's ongoing for generations upon generations. Many Jews, they want to defend themselves, but they're crept in by many Jews the feeling that we are the nations of the world. When they look at us as lowly, primitive creatures, maybe they're taka right? You look at the early works of the people, the Maskilim and Duster, they're self-hating Jews because the Goyim looked at them that they're primitive entities, that they're not educated, they don't know about Kol Davar, everything in the world, that you know, so that they don't call sich in Yana Ya'ilam as the Goyim, those are their primitive creatures. So there was one song of Vort that was said, that someone was saying, we say at the end of Eicha, Hashivenu Hashem Elecha v'Neshuva Chadash Yemenu K'Kedem. Return us to you, Hashem, and we will return. Renew our days as old. So he was saying a very powerful word, a very simple word. He says, which nation of the world today could really say Chadash Yemenu K'Kedem? The English, the Russians, they go back a few thousand years. They were wild tribes roaming the desert, eating up cannibals. They were cannibals. They're going to say Chadash Yemenu K'Kedem. They can't say Chadash Yemenu K'Kedem. The Jewish people is the only nation that had, going back to the day when they had the Sanhedrin, they had Chochmah, Torah, Gedula, B'Makimecha, that they had a real revelation of godliness, a real wisdom. The Jewish people are the only people that could say Chadash Yemenu K'Kedem. So the problem is when we're in Galus, when we're Kivsa Achas Ben Shivim Zevim, we're one sheep among 70 wolves, sometimes we start looking down at ourselves. It's important at such a point to realize that no, we have something that the Shivim Zevim don't have. We shouldn't become bottled. We shouldn't feel internally nullified and, incompetent, whatever the right word is, undervalued, due to the fact that it seems that the people that are surrounding us are so much more and they value things which we don't value, and we don't value things that they value. You have to know, they are who they are, but we are a Davar Shebimini, we're counted, we bring out our essential connection, and we have Deibishter with us, that's all. So this is the union of Matan Torah. By Matan Torah, what did Deibishter do? Deibishter took the Eden to the desert and he gave them the Torah. Eibusher could have taken them into inhabited land, given them Eretz Yisrael, given them a blueprint how to build beautiful cities, and how to build a beautiful infrastructure like the Romans did, a beautiful government, like the Romans claim, right? The Gemara says when Mashiach will come, every nation will come to the Eibusher and claim its virtues. The Romans will come and say, look, we built bridges, whatever. The Gemara Masech the Shavuos, Abshim Bayachai. Right, they're gonna, they think we built up a world. And what did the Jewish people show for themselves? They're sitting in the desert learning Torah. But the point is, because this is what the world, this is what Judaism is all about. To build up the world, that you could have, that's not what Torah is for. The Chachmei Yisrael weren't chemists and physics and they learned things that are negated to Torah, but they didn't see their role as being able to figure out a new cure for another disease. It's not that something wrong with it, but their goal was something higher. Their goal was to connect with Eibusher. This is the secret of Jewish survival. Jewish people, their whole existence is not just a secular existence. Their values with a goy, one nation comes, one nation goes. There's no eternity. The Rome and the Egyptians and their whole culture is now in the museums. Maybe their descendants are still alive today, but mixed in with other people. It's not eternal. Torah is eternal. Torah is beyond time. So yeah, obviously you need to be in the world. Yeah, you have to live and eat and do business and all those things. But what were the values of the Jewish people? The Eibusher took them into the desert. That's how the nation started. It didn't set them up into a country, because if you don't have God on your side, then the infrastructure doesn't mean anything. By a goy, he could have an infrastructure, maybe it would work or not, at least temporarily, whatever reason. When can this explain? But for a Jew, this is what gives him his chayes. So when it comes to Matan Torah, a Jew acclaims and he understands, and what is his chayes? His chayes is his connection to Eibusher. He has to be involved in the world. These are his, but what are his values? What does, as Mendel was speaking about last week, well, what do you see as a value to educate your kids? Doesn't, just because the secular world looks at, to them, they don't have Torah, but then what's the value? Learn a little bit of history, biology, and thus, not getting into the whole discussion, but they're learning it not only because they feel that it's a need in life, but then it's a value. That's your educator. Someone was telling me his father went to college, so the professor asked him the first day, what are you coming here to college? So he thought, you're coming to college because you're learning something, you're learning whatever it was, accounting, whatever other thing he was learning, finances, in order to be able to make a living. So he said, no, you're coming to college in order to become a well-grounded individual. This is the difference between, Torah looks at business or other things that a person might need to learn to be able to make money as a tool, not as a means, not as a means to an end, not to an end unto itself. In the nations of the world, they don't appreciate Torah, but for a Jew, he looks at it that his life is something higher. He has to be involved and do what he has to do, but his life is Torah. So like Mazeda was saying, Mazeda was in Australia, so he was involved in the yeshiva over there. And who did you have? You had a lot of, the community in Melbourne was built around Holocaust survivors.
The Australian Zeta.
Correct.
Okay, I just want to
community in Melbourne, Australia. That's
not the New York. Okay.
Correct. There were Holocaust survivors in New York as well, but the schools, the Chabad school in Crown Heights was not built around them. That is correct. So over there, so they had many. So you would have, a lot of them from the Haim. They had some feelings towards Yiddishkeit, but they practically did not understand the need, for their kids to learn Torah. So to them, in the olden days, you learned Gemara meant you were becoming a Rav, you were becoming a Pesach. Ask them, why did they need to learn Gemara? So they said, okay, fine. Why did they need to learn all the different things that they were learning? Secular studies. And so you don't need it, but it's good to know a little bit of this, a little bit of that. So Isaiah said, why is that any more important than Torah? The question is not what you need to know, you don't need to know. The question is, what do you value, you don't value. If you value something, it's important, even if you don't need it. If you don't value it, you don't consider it important, even if it is important. So when it comes to Matan Torah, what was Matan Torah? Matan Torah, the Jewish people said Nasav and Ishma. They accepted something which didn't make any sense. They didn't think it through. How much money will it give us? How will it fit our budget? How will it fit the way we're perceived by the nations of the world? It was Nasav and Ishma. And like the famous story of the Gemara, Rabbi was learning Torah and he was involved in a sugya and he was biting his thumb, whatever was, his finger was under his foot. I don't remember exactly, but he was learning and he was so involved in his learning that he was hurting himself, he was bleeding, he didn't even realize. So a heretic, a tzaddik, tells him, he says, you guys, you Jews still aren't the same. Because you're an impulsive nation. You do things before you understand what you're doing. So look at yourself, you're hurting yourself. So Rabbi said, he brought in the pasuk, Tumas Rishoyim Tamchen. That he said that the sincerity of the Yesharim, of those that are upright, that leads them through life. You can have somebody that's very thought out, he thinks he's thought out, but he's sly, he's crooked, he's not interested in the ultimate truth. You can have somebody that's, you might call a Batlan, what is his goals? His goals are not maybe to make to make money. His goal is not to become the most famous person in the news. But such a person you could trust, because Tumas Yesharim Tanachim, he has goals that are eternal. So when it comes Matan Torah, every year we receive the Torah, and every year it's a renewed commitment that we make, and it's more than a commitment, it's a renewed recognition of who we are and what we are. And Hamaisu Ikra, when a person has time during the day, so it's important to Pasha learn Torah. That's what it boils down to. Kfiyas Yitzim Torah, as I mentioned last week, Pasha gives a prayer. Zayda told me that a day that he doesn't learn Gemara, he doesn't feel himself. He had a bunch of headaches dealing with this, with that. The few minutes a day he was able to sit and learn Gemara, Pashat gave him sanity for the day. And the same thing is in every personal life, even a person that's very frum and very chassidish and very dust, if he doesn't actually sit and learn Torah a few minutes a day, he's losing something. Yeah, I see it by myself and I see it by many other people. It gives a person a certain sense of, you learn what you want, whatever it might be, but for a few minutes a day you're connecting to something which, first of all, it feeds your neshama, it's real, and it gives you certain, instead of the whole day, we're thrown around from one newscast to the other newscast, this missile is flying, that missile is flying, and a person feels, the Eibush is pulling the rug under people's feet now, that's for sure. The Eibush is showing the world that he's the boss, there's no doubt about it. And the person, you have to connect it to what's real, what's eternal, to the Eibush, the Torah mitzvahs, to Mashiach. And the main thing is we should have a Kabbalah Satayra b'simcha b'pnimis. We should internalize Torah. Somebody told me just before, the Rabbi writes in a letter that there's simcha and there's pnimis. Somebody says if you have Kabbalah Satayra b'simcha, if you take it with joy, the mela will be b'pnimis. The mela will be internalized.
Who said it?
The Rabbi writes it in the letter. The Rabbi would always wish Kabbalah Satayra b'simcha. He said if you do it b'simcha, right? Because that's a lot of times our, the Gemara said that those mitzvahs that the Jewish people accepted with joy, they always kept them up. Bris Milah, right? Bris Milah is something the Jewish people from its conception. So that's why you have today Jews that are very far from Yiddishkeit, they're anti-religious maybe even, but many of them will still do a bris. Many of them. And then it says that other mitzvahs that Yidden took, they weren't so happy about it until today. What was the example? It says Neibusha gave this of Aroyas, a person not allowed to have a forbidden relationship, so the Jewish people started crying. Oy, what a loss. So it says, it says every chasna, like a ksuba, less particular, every chasna has a fight. There's always a fight going on about something. Why? Because the mitzvah of marriage, according to Torah, was something that the Jewish people initially took, they weren't happy about. So that had a lasting effect. So if you take something with simcha, if you take a mitzvah that you're happy about, take it and do it. It will give you simcha, it will give you a pnimus, it will give you a connection, it will be everlasting. And the kid is, we should have the Shemer Achemis, the Eibush should watch over the Jews wherever they are, and he should reveal his protection, and we should have the coming of Mashiach take it from the Yad Mamash.
Amen. So what do you say? The simcha pnimis, if simcha already